Egypt, one of the largest and most powerful nations in Africa and the Middle East, a fairly modern nation with large-scale business industry and tourism. Yet, for as long as anyone can remember, they have been ruled by corrupt politicians and dictators. In the last 4 years, there has been a dynamic power shift with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi taking over. Many thought there would be a change under their new leader, yet the same problems that took place over the last 30-plus year reign of their previous president are beginning to occur again. Recently, Egypt has become more militarized, and mass protests have broken out all over the country as a result. While these protests for the most part have been nonviolent, the military has still been arresting and even silencing those who oppose. The army is involved in all aspects of the country and have turned Egypt into a very militarized zone and effectively a police state. The military under President Sisi has taken over industry in Egypt. For instance, the real estate industry. The army has land and buildings they sell for very high prices while forcing out local competition and in turn forcing a monopoly. In the food industry, they have taken over many grocery stores and gotten rid of any other stores other than their own so they can sell food at whatever price they deem fit and be the only option for the civilians. Aside from those, more industries have been taken over, like the pharmacy industry, retail, clothing, and many others.
The army right now, they are building a lot of new cities, a lot of buildings, and they are selling it to the public with really high prices. Putting in consideration that the army, they get their lands for free. They don't pay for any lands because they own it. They are the army. They don't pay for any labor because they have the workforce. They don't pay any taxes. So when they start competing with other real estate firms, of course, there's unfair competition.
This is the first time the military has been this involved since President Sisi took over. Sisi's mentality is that of, well, these companies are making money from the people, so why can't the military? The people of Egypt have started taking notice. Riots, protests, and marches have all broken out all over the city, with people opposing this new rule and demanding change for the regime. The military, and not the police, are the main ones dispersing protesters and displaying force to get them to stop. And while, for the most part, there are protests against President Sisi, there are still those who support him. Marches are conducted by civilians in defense of their president. These could be for many reasons. According to research conducted and the consensus of the younger Egyptians who oppose Sisi, the ones who back him are generally the older generation who are just used to being oppressed under rule for 20 to 30 years or so, and expect this to happen when Sisi was elected. This old world way of thinking could be one of the reasons why this rule is still so prevalent in Egypt today. Al-Sisi's supporters also claim that him stepping down would destabilize the country's economy as well as let up on the fight against terrorism, as the president has been very, very hard on his fight against ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Islamic Brotherhood. However, the hypocrisy begins when the marches in favor and in support of Sisi are protected by the military, and sometimes the military will even invite people to come down in celebration of the president, hand out flyers, and have a festival, while the protesters who oppose Sisi are arrested regularly by that same force and sometimes even put to death while in prison. During the time of Sisi's reign, more than 60,000 people have been arrested and housed in the myriad of new prisons built by the regime.
When Sisi led a military coup of President Mohamed Morsi in 2013, he outlawed all unauthorised protests. A government crackdown followed, with tens of thousands of Egyptians arrested, including journalists like Al Jazeera's own Mahmoud Hussein, who has now been in prison more than 1,000 days.
The fear that is being caused by President al-Sisi is shown when talking to Egyptian people. 2 Egyptian friends of mine that I tried to interview for this did not want to be on camera saying anything negative about the president, citing that they still visit their home country, and they have seen firsthand people being arrested and taken away by Sisi's military. According to the citizens of Egypt, there are police walking around posed as everyday civilians who are listening for anyone who talks badly about the president or the government so they can arrest them for quote-unquote terroristic threats. This begs the question of how far does freedom of speech go when you don't even know if the person you're talking to has your rights in best interest. The reason these protests are breaking out now, besides Sisi having been elected for over 4 years, is that one of his promises prior to his election was to ensure that the presidency of Egypt would not be like it was before, with a dictator mentality. President Sisi vowed to impose the 4-year policy similar to what the United States have. Yet since his election, he has changed the ruling into his favor, and now that his time in office is supposed to be coming to a close, he shows no signs of leaving, and will most likely remain in office just like the other dictators of Egypt in the past. While these riots by the people generally have gone nowhere, they have at least shed light on the atrocities that are currently going on in their home countries. How concerned are you that the fragile alliance with Egypt is going with these riots and with the new dictatorship that's forming over there?
It's pretty concerning, right? As Americans, we need all the allies we can get over in the Middle East, and you saw what happened with Libya and Gaddafi and how that place just turned into this war-torn area.
These protests and riots are affecting much more than just Egypt. The relationship between the Egyptian people and the U.S. government is worsening as our current administration has not condemned these actions or supported the Egyptian people like they did with Libya and Gaddafi. Yet overall, much change probably won't be seen anytime soon. However, it is a good sign that the people are revolting and demanding justice and reform this early on in the administration.